cold bites the marble courts of Valinor. Servants run blind through ash that still glows red underfoot, and from the darkened mound of Ezelohar comes a sound no one in Arda was meant to hear. The two trees splitting as they die. Somewhere beyond the black slope, someone screams Finwë's name. Poisoned sap steams in the wind, and over the roots the darkness hangs like a mouth that has not finished feeding. If this road into a lost Middle-earth draws you in, leave a like, subscribe for more, and tell us in the comments where in the world you are watching from. Under this same dim sky, the morning begins. Nienna kneels first, not in the halls, not before the thrones, but in the ruin itself, where the grass of Valinor has gone slick with black moisture, and the bark of Telperion and Lorelei stands split and dull as old bone. Her tears strike the poisoned earth and hiss. Yavanna comes beside her with both hands pressed to the roots. The other Valar gather in a ring of silence, and even in their grief they feel it. Far below the rot, beyond the venom, beneath the reach of Ungoliant's hunger, something still remembers song. In the true history of Arda, the last living light would be taken from flower and fruit, and the trees would die forever. Here, the Valar choose another labor. They do not turn first to the Silmarils. They turn downward into the wound. Yavanna sings with a voice so low that the hill itself seems to answer. Varda gathers starfire into her palms and lets it fall like frost upon the broken boughs. Manwë stills every wind in Aman, that no breath may carry away what little life remains. Aula breaks the poisoned soil apart with his bare hands. Nienna weeps until the blackened ground softens. Then, for one long measure of grief, nothing happens. The silence becomes its own terror. Then, from the deepest rent in Telperion's trunk, a thread of pale light seeps out, thin as moonlight under a door. A shudder passes through Laurelen's roots, and one buried vein glows gold beneath the dirt. It is not enough to banish the dark. It is enough to tell the Valar that death has not yet fully closed its hand. By the time Feanor comes, Finwë's blood still dark upon the memory of Formenos, the hill of Ezelohar is veiled in a dim radiance, like dawn seen through smoke. The light is weak, trembling, wounded, but it is there. The Valar do not ask him for the Silmarils, because for the first time since Melkor's stroke, they dare to hope they may not need them. That mercy becomes a new poison. Feanor stands before the mound, his face pale and terrible. He sees the light returning to the trees, and in that moment his father's murder is not lessened. It is sharpened. Aman may heal its trees. Aman cannot raise Finwë. What comfort is Silverbark to a son who has touched his father's blood? Yavanna speaks gently, though nothing gentle remains in the air. There is life below the poison. Feanor's gaze does not leave the dim trunks. Then let them live, he says, and let Morgoth learn what he stole has not saved him. Mandos watches him, and what Mandos sees is not relief. It is displacement. The Valar no longer need what only Feanor can provide. The Silmarils remain priceless, but the trees are no longer wholly lost. Pride, wounded before, now has room to harden into something colder. Could Feanor forgive a light that returned for branches, but not for Finwë? He cannot. He will not. He names Melkor Morgoth before all, black foe of the world, and in that naming he speaks truth. But truth in Feanor's mouth is already wrapped around vengeance. He calls upon his 7 sons, and the oath is sworn beneath a sky where silver slowly strengthens behind the mountains of Valinor. Their voices rise like drawn steel. They swear pursuit unto the ends of Arda, against Valar, elf or demon, any who withholds a Silmaril. The restored glow from Izelohar touches their faces as if warning them back. It does not stop them. Around them, the Noldor divide. Some look west and see hope. The trees are not dead. Aman is not broken beyond healing. Why flee paradise while it mends? Others look north and see only Finwës, corpse in memory, the thief escaping, and Morgoth enthroned in mockery somewhere beyond the sea. Fingolfin hesitates. Finarfin pleads for peace. Galadriel stands apart in the hush after the oath, bright-eyed and unsmiling, and what she feels is not simple rebellion. She sees in the renewed trees a terrible possibility, that the blessed realm may heal itself and forget the darkness left to spread elsewhere. What did it mean to save the heart of Aman and leave the rest of Arda to starlight? That question follows her to the havens. At Alqualonder, the sea smells of salt, pearl, and pitch. The Teleri have hung lamps along the white quays, and their reflections tremble on dark water. Word has already reached them that the trees live, though wounded. That news makes them firmer, not softer. Olve will not lend ships for a war of pride, now that Valinor is not wholly bereft. His mariners clutch wet ropes in cold hands and look upon the host of the Noldor with disbelief. Behind them, the gulls wheel and cry into a night that no longer feels eternal, because faint silver from distant Izelohar touches the clouds. Feanor asks once, then he commands. The slaughter that follows is no less dreadful for the light behind it. White stones go red under running feet. Oars become clubs. Knives flash at throats slick with sea spray. Teleri, who had never drawn blade against their kin, die with the smell of brine in their lungs and the surf washing pink around their ankles. Some leap into the harbour rather than yield the swan ships, and their pale garments bloom under the water like torn blossoms. The Noldor sees the fleet, but victory tastes of blood and kelp. Far away, on the hill they have abandoned, Telperion stirs and sheds a rain of silver dew upon empty grass. When Mando speaks, his doom falls heavier in this altered world. The light of Aman is alive again behind those who depart. They are not driven forth from a dead paradise. They choose to leave a healing one. Tears unnumbered ye shall shed, he says, his voice deep as the roots of mountains. For the light ye leave behind shall not follow you. In the lands of exile, many shall die without dawn. Finarfin turns back. Many of his people turn with him. Thus, the rebellion sails east diminished, prouder and more isolated than in the first telling. Fingolfin follows because he will not abandon his folk to Feanor's fire. Galadriel goes because something in her refuses a bliss that can be guarded while Middle-earth lies in shadow. The swan ships cut across black water. Behind them, Aman glows faintly, not dead, not lost, and for that reason the distance feels crueler. Feanor burns the ships at Losgar all the same. The flames leap orange against the sea, and their smoke claws upward into the star-strewn dark. Fingolfin's host, left behind on the grinding ice, sees that fire from afar and knows what has been done. The crackle of burning masts carries across the coast like laughter. Feanor stands before the blaze with wind in his hair and sees, for one exultant instant, a light he has made by his own will. Then he turns toward Angband, and the old doom runs to meet him. He dies beneath the walls of Morgoth's realm, as he always was likely to die. Too swift, too proud, and too far before his strength. Balrogs encircle him in a ring of fire, their whips hissing in the dark. The iron smell of his own blood steams in the cold air. Before the end, he looks north, where Thangorodrim towers against the stars, and west, where no dawn comes. The fire consuming him is bright enough to throw long shadows over black stone. His sons hear his last command and inherit his unrest. If the trees lived again in Valinor, why did the East remain night? Middle-earth learns the answer slowly, and by then the damage is done. The Valar, intent on restoration, do not fashion the sun and moon. Their thought is merciful by their own measure. The trees are wounded and need time. Aman is steadied. Morgoth has fled. Let starlight suffice a little while longer. Yet in the outer lands that little while stretches across lives, battles, births, and betrayals. The darkness that once seemed only the old twilight of the world now deepens into policy, absence, omission. Círdan at the grey shores feels it first in the wind. He is old enough to remember the great journey, older than kingdoms that will rise and fall around him, and as he looks west, he sometimes sees on the farthest edge of the world a pulse of silver and gold that should have brought comfort. Instead, it cuts him. Beyond the sea, light blooms. Here, the beaches lie under stars, and the tide whispers over pebbles like a warning. Fingolfin's people cross the Helcaraxe through grinding cold that gnaws the bones. Ice cracks beneath the weight of grief and armor. Children of the Noldor sleep with frozen tears on their cheeks. Mothers wake to find hair silvered with rime. Some slip into black water without a cry, swallowed between drifting slabs. Above them, the heavens remain beautiful and indifferent. The stars of Varda burn clear as knives. When the exiles finally reach Middle-earth, they find not mourning, but a wider darkness. Years pass in war beneath the stars. Medros hangs from Thangorodrim, wrist pierced, body turning in bitter winds while ravens circle. Fingon climbs through stone and shadow to save him. And when the eagle comes and Thorondor's wings beat thunder through the cold, that rescue looks for one suspended moment like the ending of a tale. Brother is restored to brother. A divided house is made almost whole in pity. Beneath them, the armies of Morgoth recoil. The siege of Angband is laid. Fires are banked. Songs return to hall and hearth. But was it peace, or only a pause in a night that had never ended? Far to the east, where no Noldorin banner flies and no messenger from Aman has ever walked, another people wake. They rise beside waters dark as polished stone. Frost lies on the reeds. Children cry at the cold. Men and women open their eyes beneath a sky with no dawn in it, only stars and the slow wheeling of constellations they do not know how to read. They huddle around their first fires and watch the flames with awe that turns quickly to fear, because beyond the ring of light, something moves. Wolves call from tree lines. Wind passes over grass with the sound of whispering. What kind of men first opened their eyes beneath a sky that never brightened? Some learn courage, some learn suspicion, some learn to love the stars. Many learn, before any other lesson, to be afraid. Among those shadows, Sauron walks in hidden forms. Now Morgoth's greatest servant is patient where his master is ravenous. He comes not first with armies, but with voices. A stranger at the edge of the fire, a shape glimpsed among trunks, a teacher who says there is a lord in the north who commands warmth, strength, and safety, if only these newborn mortals will bow. To some, he appears as a hunter with bright eyes, to others as a spirit clothed in flame. He points northward and calls darkness order. Whole clans disappear toward that promise. Others resist. They keep small hearths alive through endless star night. They dry meat over smoke and carve marks into bark to count the passing seasons that no sunrise will divide. Mothers teach children the names they themselves have just invented for the constellations. Fathers stand with spears listening to distant howls and wondering whether the dark is all the world has ever been. By the time the first of the Edain begin their long wandering west, fear has already entered human memory so deeply that it passes like inheritance. Finrod Felagund meets them not in sunlit fields, but by the glow of campfires hidden under trees. He hears singing first, rough and mortal and beautiful for its frailty. The men of Beor sit wrapped in skins, their faces amber in firelight, breath pale in cold air. They stare at the Elf Lord as if a star has stepped down among them. Finrod sees wonder in them, but also exhaustion older than their years. They are a people born already looking over their shoulders. Galadriel in Doriath speaks of this to Melian. The queen's girdle hums softly around the guarded land. Nightingale songs drift through beech and oak. Lamps of Doriath turn leaves silver, and far off the falls of Escalduin murmur under starlight. Galadriel stands with her hands folded, listening as Melian, who is Maya and has seen the music beneath the world, gazes west with a stillness that unsettles even the proudest of the Noldor. The trees are strong again, Galadriel says. So the messengers from the sea report. Melian does not look at her, strong enough to bloom, strong enough to cast light upon their own hill. Then why do the Valar not send that light east? At last, Melian turns, and in her eyes there is pity for beings greater than kings, because even the mighty may mistake restoration for healing. The words settle between them like frost. In Angband, Morgoth understands what the Valar have done before the Eldar fully grasp it. He laughs when he learns that no sun rises. His malice sharpens. If Aman hoards renewed light, then Middle-earth becomes a proving ground for everything abandoned to shadow. He breeds wolves in deeper pits. He sends Glaurung crawling forth before his time, scales steaming, eyes like banked coals. He tests the long night and finds it good for terror. The siege breaks in fire. The battle of sudden flame becomes, in this world, the nearest thing Middle-earth has yet seen to sunrise, and that is why it is remembered with an added horror. Rivers of flame tear across the northern plain. The stars vanish behind smoke. Watchers on distant walls see red spread over the land, and for one stunned instant, think the dawn has come at last. Then they hear the screams. Angrod and Egnor die in heat so fierce that the air itself seems to burn their names away. Pine forests explode into showers of sparks. Men of Beor fall with hair and cloaks aflame, striking blindly at shadows that move through boiling smoke. Women in hidden farmsteads clutch children close as windows glow red and ash sifts through roof thatch. In Nargothrond, servants smell pitch and char long before any messenger arrives. In Hithlum, sentries beat shields in alarm while black cinders settle on snow. Thus, the night is broken not by grace, but by catastrophe. Beren comes out of that broken age, lean, hunted, half-starved, the last ragged leaf from a ruined house. His meeting with Luthien still feels impossible enough to challenge fate itself. In the woods of Doriath, where stars spill through branches and her song turns the darkness gentle for a little while, he sees not only beauty, but a memory of what the world might have been had light been given freely. The Silmaril he later seeks in Morgoth's crown remains a jewel of unbearable sanctity. Yet in this altered history, it carries another wound. It is no longer the last captive remnant of the trees, but a private, hoarded fire rivaling their restored radiance beyond the sea. What is a Silmaril worth when the trees themselves still live, hidden and untouchable across the water? To Thingol, it is pride. To Beren, it is bride price. To Luthien, it becomes an act of defiance against every power, dark or holy, that would keep beauty enclosed. When she sings before Morgoth's throne, all Angband listens. The iron halls hush. Wolves lower their heads. Even the fires seem to lean toward her voice. For a little while, the great enemy sleeps, and in that sleep lies judgment. The strongest fortress in Middle-earth can be mastered by song and pity, yet the world outside remains unchanged. One Silmaril comes free. One mortal hand is lost. Doriath's doom only begins to gather. Thingol dies for the jewel. Dwarven blades work in secret chambers. Blood spreads across carved stone. Melian departs, and the girdle fails. The ruin moves onward with a dreadful rhythm now familiar to this world. Every victory costs a realm. Gondolin rises hidden and splendid, its fountains bright beneath cold stars. Turgon believes secrecy may preserve what valor cannot. For a time, the city gleams like a promise stored against the dark. Children run through white courts. Smiths ring anvils before dawn that never arrives. High on the encircling walls, guards watch the east grow no lighter and tell themselves the mountains are enough. Then Meglin, with envy long fed and fear finally sharpened, betrays the road. The fall of Gondolin is all flame, brass and stone dust. Balrogs stride through shattered gates. Dragons grind over pavements. The smell of hot metal, blood and burning cedar fills the hidden vale. Tuor fights at the squares. Idril leads the remnant through secret ways. Glorfindel casts down a Balrog and gives his life on a knife-edge pass. Another seeming ending. Another rescue paid for in ash. All roads narrow toward the sea. By the mouths of Sirion, beneath gull cries and damp winds, the last hopes of elves and men mingle uneasily. There Eärendil grows amid ship timber, refugee songs, and the old grief of sundered kindreds. He hears of Gondolin's ruined from his father, of Doriath's from survivors, of the oath from those who still wake at night hearing swords on the quays of Alqualonda in memory. He also hears rumors from mariners of a glow in the utter west, faint but living. As a child, he imagines towers lit by gold and silver beyond mortal sailing. As a man, he begins to understand the shape of the accusation. His sons are young when he chooses at last to sail alone. Elwing comes to him like white fire over the sea, the Silmaril upon her breast, after another kinslaying has stained the havens. The cries of slain mariners still hang in the salt air. Waves slap blood-darkened piers. Smoke drifts above wrecked ships. Eärendil takes the jewel, and its light cuts a path over the water. Behind him, war and oath devour what remains. Ahead, the west burns faintly beyond the bent edges of longing. He reaches Aman. He passes the enchanted isles and the shadowy seas. He sees the Pelori rise. Then at last, he beholds what no exile had expected to see with mortal eyes. Not only the lamps of Tirion, not only the deathless shore, but on the hill of Ezelohar, two trees standing once more, tall and terrible in recovered beauty. Telperion pours silver like rain over the grass. Lorelei spills gold through the leaves like living dawn. The sight is so beautiful that for one heartbeat it undoes him. Then the thought follows, hard and clean as a blade. They lived, and still the world waited in darkness. Eärendil speaks before the Valar not as a supplicant alone, but as witness. He speaks of men born under Star Night and taught fear before language. He speaks of farmsteads burned in the Bragolak, of hidden cities fallen, of brothers slaying brothers while Aman healed behind its mountains. He does not deny the labor the Valar undertook. He does not accuse with bitterness. That is what makes it worse. Yavanna hears him and lowers her head. "We restored what we could reach," Manwë says, and his voice is sorrow, not defense. Eärendil answers, "You reached the roots nearest your thrones." Silence follows. In that silence, the trees rustle above them, and even they seem to wait. It is Nienna who weeps again. It is Varda who looks east beyond the sea, as if seeing at last without any veil the long consequence of delay. And it is Yavanna who goes to the trees and lays her palm upon their bark. From them she asks not by force, not by desperate salvage, but by humility. Will they give now what was once withheld from the world by caution and grief? This time the answer is willing. From Telperion a new flower opens, pale as hoarded memory surrendering itself. From Lorelin hangs a fruit bright enough to turn every face golden. The Valar take them reverently. They do not sever the life of the trees they share it. Through the skill of Auli, the blessing of Varda, and the guidance of spirits pure enough to bear such fire, the vessels of the sun and moon are made at last. When first dawn rises over Middle-earth, it rises over ruins. The eastern rim of the world whitens. Frost on dead grass turns to pearl. Watchers in hidden camps cry out and fall to their knees. Orcs shriek and claw at their eyes. Wolves bolt for shadow. In a high valley, an old woman of the Edain, who has counted years only by winter and stars, reaches trembling fingers toward light warming her skin for the first time and begins to sob. Rivers answer in gold. Ice on mountain ledges flashes. Birds erupt from reeds in confused delight. Children who have never seen their own shadows run after them, laughing, then stop in terror when they realize the dark thing at their heels is theirs. Morgoth hates the dawn more than any wound. The war of wrath that follows is not gentle because the light has come. It is worse. Day reveals what night had covered. Armies vast as weather break upon Beleriand, and Calagon the Black falls from the sky in ruin and crushes towers. The sea swallows kingdoms. Mountains split. Men and elves fight in brilliance, harsh enough to show every corpse, every trampled field, every stream muddied red. Morgoth is cast through the door of night. The world exhales. At last, there is morning. Relief comes first. It spreads over the survivors like warmth over stone after cold rain. Fishermen on new coasts learn to judge the hour by the sun rather than the stars alone. The remnant of the Edain stand upon shores that will one day bear their descendants westward and feel for the first time that history may move toward something other than endurance. The Valar, chastened, raise Numenor for them out of the sea, a star-shaped gift between mortality and the blessed realm. They give wisdom, lore, and long life. And because the trees still live beyond the world, their living lineage is not a memory alone. From Telperion's line comes Nimloth the Fair upon the hill of Armenelos, not merely a distant descendant of a copied image, but a tree whose sap still answers faintly to the true silver boughs in Aman. By day, its leaves shine white. By night, they glow as if touched by moonlit dew. Some say, When the west is utterly clear, a second hue lies hidden in the veins, a quiet gold from Lorelin remembered through graft and grace. Children play beneath it, old men sleep in its shade. Lovers carve no names on its bark, because to wound it feels like sacrilege. Yet paradise in sight is a dangerous gift to mortal hearts. From the western shores of Numenor, on evenings of extraordinary clarity, the horizon seems brighter than any simple sunset should allow. Mariners stand on black rocks smelling salt and drying nets, and they watch a silver-gold radiance breathe beyond the sea. They know the deathless land is there. They know the trees still bloom. They know they themselves will age and die. If immortality can be seen from the shore, who can bear to remain mortal? Sauron understands that question better than any prophet of wisdom. When at last he comes to Numenor in chains and smiles his way into council, he does not need to invent envy. He only needs to name it. In torchlit chambers smelling of resin, wine and sea wind, he speaks to Ar-Pharazôn of the west. The Valar restored their own light, he murmurs, while outside the palace the white tree whispers in the dark. They sent dawn late to Middle-earth when kingdoms had already burned. And still they bid the greatest race of men be content with death. Why? Ar-Pharazôn does not answer at first. His hands rest on carved arms of gold. Age has not yet bent him, but the fear of it has begun to hollow him. Sauron continues, soft as silk over a knife. The deathless trees stand within sight of mortal men. Is that mercy or mockery? The king's silence is the sound of ruin opening. Tar Palantir dies grieving. The faithful grow few. In the courts of Armenelos, incense thickens into a reek. Nimloth stands watched. Then, in the black hour before dawn, Isildur slips through the guarded ways to save a fruit from the white tree. The bark is cool beneath his bloodied hands. He is wounded before he escapes. Behind him, dogs bark, steel rings, and priests of darkness shout. He keeps the fruit hidden against his breast like a heart. When the great armament sails, the sea groans under its weight. Ranks of ships blacken the water horizon to horizon. Men who once fished quiet coves now row beneath banners of defiance, mails salted white with spray. Some are jubilant, some are sick with dread. All breathe the same storm-heavy air. Ahead lies Aman, still radiant beyond every warning. Ar-Pharazôn lands upon the Blessed Realm, and for one frozen instant the impossible becomes real. Mortal feet stand on deathless shore. The grass of Aman bends under armored tread. Far beyond, the trees rise over Isillohar in majesty no tale had fully captured. Men lower weapons. Some weep, some laugh. One captain runs forward as if he might lay hands upon the bark and claim eternity by touch. Then the world is changed. The Valar lay down their guardianship and call upon the One. The earth convulses. The sea climbs like a wall. Numenor falls screaming under black water. The invader host is buried alive in lands from which there is no return. Aman is removed from the circles of the world. The straight road is hidden. The radiance of the trees is veiled from mortal sight forever. Isildur survives only because his ship is driven east through storm and judgment, the fruit of Nimloth still wrapped and guarded. Thus, the light that men tried to seize by force endures among them only by theft committed for reverence. In Middle-earth, the ages turn again. Sauron rises openly, the last alliance forms, Gil-galad falls, Elendil falls, Orodruin burns red against a sky the sun now rules. and yet old shadow seems to thicken around it as if Morgoth's first night remembers itself there. Isildur takes the ring. He keeps it. The white tree in the courts of Minas Anor blooms for a while under his line, then withers as pride, neglect, and war deepen. Its dead branches stand in stone silence through generations, an accusation in wood. Still, memory leaks through the world in stubborn places. In the Shire, long ages later, spring smells of turned earth and rain on hedges. Smoke rises blue from low chimneys. Hobbits measure life by meals, weather, and the thickness of mushrooms. Yet after Galadriel gives Samwise her gift, the party field bears a malin unlike any other in that land. Its bark is smooth and pale. In autumn, its leaves hold gold, while all other trees go brown. Children dance beneath it, and do not know that in its mingled silver and gold there lingers the faintest rumour of Ezelohar, carried through Lorien, through Galadriel, through all the exiles who would not let beauty die, even when banishment made it ache. In Rohan, riders waking before dawn on the wide grass feel the world's layered history in simpler terms. Hoarfrost shines silver over the plains. And then the first touch of sun turns every blade gold. The old men say no light in Middle-earth is pure by accident. The young men laugh and tighten girths. Horses blow steam into the cold and stamp the earth. Far to the east, a darkness grows in Mordor that seems to hate both hues equally. In Gondor, under the black shadow of Sauron's return, ordinary people live among stone and strain. Washerwomen carry pails through narrow streets while the bells toll. Bakers work before sunrise in ovens hot enough to drown thought. Children on the sixth circle of Minas Tirith pause in their games to stare at the dead white tree and wonder why the king's house keeps a skeleton in its court. When wind blows from Mordor, it smells of ash and iron. When it turns from the sea, it carries salt and, sometimes, a sweetness no one can name. Galadriel feels the old pattern tightening as the War of the Ring begins. In Lorien, the Malorn leaves glitter like coins in still air. The lady remembers the hill of Izelohar before and after death, and she knows better than most that restored light does not erase old choices. When she gives the phial of Erendil to Frodo, the star-glass shines with a sharpness it has never wholly lost, because somewhere beyond the bent world, the trees from which all such sanctity descends still bloom unseen. Shelob, last child of that primordial hunger, recoils from it with ancestral terror. In the tunnels of Cirith Ungol, stone sweats cold, webs tremble, and the stench of rot clings to the lungs. Then the phial flares. Silver blazes into gold at its heart for a heartbeat. And the spider's many eyes shrink from it, as from a memory of the feast her mother failed to finish. Frodo and Sam pass onward beneath a light older than kingdoms. On the Pelennor fields, dawn breaks with strange splendor. The darkness Sauron sends from Mordor parts reluctantly, like cloth torn open. First, there is a rim of white over distant hills. Then, through the clearing murk, the sun lifts with a core of gold so fierce that spear points flash across the Rohirrim like running fire. Theoden rides beneath it. Horns echo over trampled grass and torn earth. Men who have never seen Aman still cry out as if some far inheritance has woken in their blood. They charge, they die, the king falls. The field is won and lost and won again in the space of hours, and the smell of crushed herb, horse sweat, blood, and smoke becomes the scent of one more age turning. Sauron's end comes not by armies, but by pity carried into the dark. When the ring is unmade and Barad-dûr collapses, the great shadow goes out as if a hand has smothered a furnace. Mountains groan. Towers break. Across Mordor the wind changes. Minas Tirith breathes. That is how the beginning of the end feels. Not triumph first, but release. Men lean against walls and realize they are still alive. Bells ring until hands blister. In the houses of healing, windows open to clean air. In the court of the fountain, Aragorn stands before the dead white tree and then finds upon the mountain a hidden sapling, young and already in flower. He bears it down with reverence. When it is planted, those who witness it see at once that this is no common shoot. Its blossoms are silver, but in the center of each lies the faintest star of gold. A city can read omens in silence. Gondor understands this one. Aragorn's reign begins in peace, hard-won and nearly unbelievable. Under the restored kingship, roads are tended, fields beyond the Pelennor green again. In Ithilien, once poisoned by war, herbs return after rain, and the air fills with bisong. In Rohan, foals are born to open pasture, and children who knew the war only as smoke on the horizon grow into riders beneath untroubled skies. In the Shire, Sam plants and replants, and the earth answers with abundance. The Malin rises higher, Frodo departs. Life persists, which is another way of saying grief learns to walk without collapsing. Yet disquiet enters gently, and because it is gentle, it is harder to deny. The elves begin to leave more swiftly. Their songs in the woods become fewer each year. The light in Lorien thins into memory. Aragorn and Arwen sit beneath the white tree and speak softly in evenings washed silver and gold, knowing even as they cherish the peace that the elder days are not returning. They were never truly restored. They were extended, echoed, deferred. The Valar once healed the trees and learned too late that a saved relic does not mend a wounded world. Now men inherit the long consequence of both the healing and the delay. Sam, old at last, sometimes stands in his garden at twilight and watches the Malorn leaves turn from silver undersides to gold faces in the wind. He smells earth, onions, rain, and far-off sea, though the sea is leagues away. In Minas Tirith, the white tree flowers out of season once in a while, as if answering a call beyond maps. In Rohan, some dawns are so clear that every rider on the ridge casts two shadows for an instant, one pale and one warm, before the day settles into ordinary sun. What had the Valar restored, and what had they merely postponed? By the Fourth Age, the answer lives in every quiet thing. Restoration is not reversal. Light withheld becomes part of the dark it hoped to resist. Yet light shared, even late, can still pass through bloodlines, songs, gardens, and small acts of mercy until the world is gentler than it would have been without it. The two trees, in this telling, do not fail to change history. They change it completely. They save beauty. They deepen envy. They delay dawn. They make men remember both abandonment and gift. They turn the white tree of Gondor from mere memory into living kin. They leave the Shire a little stranger, Lorien a little sadder, Numenor a little more doomed, and Sauron a little more afraid of humble hands bearing ancient light. Beyond the bent sea, hidden from mortal voyage, Telperion and Lorelin still stand. No mariner of the Fourth Age can reach them. No king can seize them. No exile can look back and see them clearly. Their branches move under winds that do not touch Middle-earth. But their descendants remain here among stone courts, green fields, and the fading footsteps of elves, they remain as blessing and reproach together. And some nights, when the wind comes cold from the west, the blossoms of the white tree in Gondor smell faintly of ash,